A toast, she announced to the assembled guests at my sister's engagement celebration, to the daughter who finally became someone worth celebrating. The applause rippled through the room like thunder. My sister Vanessa beamed, her engagement ring catching the light. Then my mother's eyes found mine across the table, and her smile turned cold. "And to the other one," she said, voice dripping with contempt, "the one who wasted every opportunity we gave her. You're a disgrace, Jordan. Get out of my house." The silence that followed was deafening. Forks froze mid-air. Champagne glasses hung suspended. I stood slowly, feeling every eye in that San Francisco mansion boring into me, and walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard the jingle of keys as my mother pressed them into Vanessa's perfectly manicured hand. "This house is yours now, darling. You've earned it." That night, I lost my family, my home, and what remained of my dignity. But 4 years later, when they drove past the gates of my compound in Palo Alto and saw my name on the building, they realized whose world they'd actually entered. And by then, it was far too late for apologies. Growing up in Pacific Heights, our family was the definition of old money prestige. Marble columns, charity galas, and a meticulously maintained reputation that my mother, Catherine Ashford Chen, guarded like a dragon hoards gold. From the outside, we were flawless. The perfect American success story. My father Richard, a Chinese, American venture capitalist who'd built his fortune in the dot-com boom. My mother, a former debutante turned socialite who managed our image with military precision. My sister Vanessa, 3 years older and groomed from birth to be the heir apparent. And me, Jordan Chen, the family's greatest disappointment. My mother made no secret of her favoritism. "Vanessa will change the world," she'd announce at dinner parties, loud enough to ensure I heard from whatever corner I'd been banished to. "She has vision, ambition, grace. Everything a daughter should be." My father was different, though. Richard Chen was a quiet genius, a man who'd left behind his passion for artificial intelligence to please my mother by pivoting into traditional finance. But late at night, in his cluttered home office that smelled of coffee and old textbooks, he'd teach me to code. His fingers would fly across the keyboard while I watched, mesmerized. "Build something that matters, Jordan," he'd say, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses as lines of Python scrolled past. "Don't just make money. Make meaning." Those words became my religion. They sustained me long after he was gone. The car accident happened during my junior year at Stanford. A rainy November night, a drunk driver, a split second that changed everything. My father died instantly. The funeral was a spectacle. My mother ensured that much. She wore black Chanel and accepted condolences with practiced grace, but the moment the last guest left, something in her crystallized into ice. She became obsessed with control, with maintaining appearances, with proving to San Francisco society that Richard Chen's death hadn't diminished the family legacy. She found it easier to love Vanessa, who reflected everything Catherine wanted to see in herself, while I became the living reminder of what she'd lost. My achievements in machine learning and renewable tech are nothing but dismissive waves. "Still playing with your little computers, Jordan?" She'd sneer while Vanessa received standing ovations for business presentations that my father had actually helped her outline years before. Aunt Vivian, my mother's older sister, was equally venomous. She'd married into tech money and never missed an opportunity to remind me of my inadequacy. "Still coding in your bedroom, Jordan?" She'd smirk over her $200 bottle of wine at family dinners. "When are you going to do something real?" I learned to smile through the humiliation, to stay quiet, to make myself small enough that their cruelty might pass over me. For years, I believed that silence was survival. But that night at Vanessa's engagement dinner proved that silence only protects the people who deserve it least. I stood beside the table, champagne flute trembling in my hand as the Swarovski chandelier cast prisms across the assembled crowd of San Francisco's elite. My mother lifted her glass in that theatrical way she'd perfected over decades of galas and benefits, and when she turned to me with those cold, calculating eyes and called me a disgrace, something inside me didn't break. It calcified, hardened, transformed. I walked out of that mansion without looking back, and as I crossed the threshold, I heard my mother's voice one final time. "The house is yours now, Vanessa. You've earned it." The house. The $3 million Victorian where my father had taught me everything that mattered. Watching my sister accept those keys felt like watching them bury my father's memory all over again. That was the night I stopped being their disappointment and started becoming something they couldn't understand. The first night after the dinner, I slept in my car, a 7-year-old Honda Civic I'd bought with money from a summer internship. Rain hammered the windshield so hard it sounded like applause, mocking and relentless. I remember gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, whispering to myself, "Don't cry. Don't give them that satisfaction." By morning, my phone had 17 missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize and 3 voicemails from my mother's assistant, each more demanding than the last. I deleted them all. I drove to Oakland and found the cheapest studio apartment I could afford, $1,200 a month for 400 square feet, a window that looked onto a brick wall, and a radiator that clanked like it was possessed. I unpacked everything I owned in 20 minutes, a duffel bag of clothes, my laptop, an external hard drive with every project I'd ever coded, and a framed photo of my father and me at my 8th grade science fair. No furniture, no dishes. No trace of the life I'd been exiled from. For the first month, I survived on instant ramen and freelance gigs, building websites for small businesses at $500 a pop. Every night, I'd scroll through social media and see photos of Vanessa's engagement party proliferating across Instagram and Facebook. She looked radiant, surrounded by flowers and champagne and congratulations. My mother stood beside her in every photo, the caption always some variation of proud mother moment. I didn't comment. I didn't react. I just worked. 3 months into my exile, I was coding in a crowded coffee shop in Berkeley when I overheard 2 venture capitalists at the next table discussing a government grant for sustainable AI startups. My ears perked up. They were talking about $250,000 in seed funding for projects that could demonstrate measurable environmental impact through artificial intelligence. That night, I opened the proposal I'd been working on since my father's death, a machine learning system that could optimize energy consumption in commercial buildings by predicting usage patterns and automatically adjusting HVAC and lighting systems. I called it AdaptiveGrid. It was everything my father had dreamed about. AI that actually helped the planet instead of just extracting profit. I spent 2 weeks polishing the proposal, surviving on coffee and determination, and submitted it at 11:58 p.m. on the deadline day. Then I waited. And waited. 6 weeks later, I got the email. "Congratulations, Miss Chen. Your proposal has been selected for funding." I sat in that dim studio apartment and cried for the first time since the engagement dinner. Not from sadness, but from sheer, overwhelming relief. Somebody believed in me, somebody saw value in my work. It didn't matter that my mother thought I was a failure. The U.S. Department of Energy disagreed. The grant money changed everything. I quit freelancing and threw myself into AdaptiveGrid full-time. But I couldn't do it alone. That's when I reconnected with Dr. Sarah Martinez, my machine learning professor from Stanford, who'd always believed I was capable of more than I believed in myself. I sent her a tentative email explaining the project, half expecting silence. She responded within an hour. "Come to my lab tomorrow. Let's talk." Her research facility at Berkeley became my second home. She introduced me to Phoenix Williams, a brilliant hardware engineer with a sharp wit and an even sharper understanding of sensor networks. Phoenix and I clicked immediately, 2 people who'd spent their lives being underestimated by everyone except themselves. We worked 100-hour weeks, sleeping on lab couches between debugging sessions, living on vending machine, coffee, and stubborn pride. "You code like you're proving something," Phoenix observed one night at 3 a.m. "I am," I admitted. "To who?" "To everyone who said I couldn't." Our first prototype was crude, a mess of sensors and algorithms that barely worked, but when we tested it on a small office building in Oakland and reduced their energy consumption by 34%, we knew we had something real. Still, survival was a daily battle. My landlord slid an eviction notice under my door with 72-hour warning. I called Phoenix, laughing through my panic. I need this to work before I'm homeless. Then we'd better work faster, she said. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Martinez introduced us to Marcus Liu, a venture capitalist who specialized in climate tech. He was young, maybe 35, with an intensity that reminded me of my father. He wore hoodies to pitch meetings and asked questions that actually mattered. After seeing our demo, he leaned back in his chair and said, "You're not just building software, you're building infrastructure for a carbon-neutral future. I'm in." His firm invested $850,000 for 15% equity. Suddenly, Phoenix and I could afford a real office, real equipment, and real salaries. We moved into a converted warehouse in West Oakland that smelled like sawdust and possibility. The walls were exposed brick, the ceilings were 20 feet high, and we had enough room to build a full testing environment. We hired 3 more engineers, all brilliant misfits who'd been overlooked by big tech companies. For 18 months, we worked like people possessed. I'd look at my reflection in the office windows at 2 a.m. exhausted, hollow-eyed, fueled by rage and caffeine, and whisper the words my mother had said. "You're a disgrace." Then I'd code for another 6 hours just to prove her wrong. Our first major client was a shopping mall chain in Southern California. They installed AdaptiveGrid across 12 locations. Within 6 months, their energy costs dropped 41%, and their carbon emissions fell by half. The CEO called me personally. "Miss Chen, you've built something extraordinary." When I hung up, I sat alone in the empty office and finally let myself believe it might be true. AdaptiveGrid grew faster than I could have imagined. We signed contracts with universities, hospitals, government buildings, corporate campuses. Every installation proved the concept. AI could make buildings smarter, cleaner, more efficient. Tech journalists started noticing. I gave a few interviews, always carefully measured, never revealing the personal story behind my drive. "What inspired you to build this?" they'd ask. "My father," I'd say simply, and leave it at that. By the 3rd year, we'd expanded to 47 employees and revenue had hit $18 million annually. Forbes ran a feature calling me the quiet genius revolutionizing commercial energy. I didn't send the article to my mother. I didn't need her validation anymore. But somewhere deep down, I knew she'd see it eventually. And when she did, I wanted her to understand exactly what she'd thrown away. The morning everything changed started like any other October day. The Bay Area air was crisp and golden, eucalyptus trees swaying in the breeze. I was on a video call with Phoenix discussing a new sensor deployment when my phone started buzzing repeatedly. Unknown number. 415 area code San Francisco. My mother's city. I ignored it the first 3 times. On the 4th call, I sighed and stepped outside onto the balcony of my new house, a custom-built, net-zero energy home in Palo Alto that I'd designed myself. Every window, every solar panel, every inch of insulation was intentional. It was my masterpiece. Through the electronic gate at the end of the driveway, I saw a black Mercedes SUV slow to a crawl, engine purring expensively. The tinted window rolled down, and I saw her. Vanessa. Perfect hair in perfect waves, perfect makeup, perfectly manicured nails, gripping the steering wheel. But her expression wasn't perfect. It was confused, then shocked, then something close to panic. Her eyes moved from me to the house, to the discreet bronze plaque beside the driveway that read AdaptiveGrid Headquarters Founder, Dr. Jordan Chen. I watched her process it in real time. The 3-story glass and steel structure. The solar panel array on the roof. The Tesla charging stations. The architectural digest-worthy landscaping. This wasn't just a house. It was a statement. Her hand shot to her phone. Even from 50 feet away, I could read her lips. "Mom. You need to see this. Jordan's house. It's worth millions. And the company. Oh my God, Mom. The company is hers. AdaptiveGrid. That's Jordan's." Her voice cracked into something between a laugh and a scream. The Mercedes lurched forward and sped away, tires squealing on the pavement. I stood there for a long moment, coffee cooling in my hand. I'd imagined this moment countless times, the vindication, the triumph, the sweet taste of revenge. But what I felt instead was quieter. Calmer. Like finally setting down a weight I'd been carrying since childhood. I wasn't angry. I was free. Exactly 90 minutes later, the intercom at my gate buzzed. The camera screen showed a woman in a tailored Burberry coat, hair professionally styled, makeup applied with the precision of someone who'd practiced in a mirror. My mother. Catherine Ashford Chen. I almost didn't answer. Almost let her stand there at the gate like she'd made me stand at countless family dinners, invisible and unwanted. But curiosity, cold and clinical, made me press the button. Yes? My voice came through the speaker, emotionless. Jordan, it's your mother. May I come in? We need to talk. I considered making her wait. Making her beg. Instead, I pressed the gate release and watched on the security monitor as she walked up the driveway, her eyes taking in every detail. The native plant landscaping, the rainwater collection system, the solar panels that tracked the sun's movement automatically. When I opened the front door, her perfume hit me first, the same Chanel No. 5 she'd worn my entire life. Jordan, she said softly, and I heard something in her voice I'd never heard before. Uncertainty. I didn't invite her in. I stood in the doorway, forcing her to speak from the porch like a salesperson. You've done remarkably well, she managed, eyes darting past me to the minimalist interior, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the floating staircase. I had no idea you'd built something so significant. You weren't supposed to know, I said flatly. You threw me out, remember? Told me I was a disgrace. Gave Vanessa the house. My inheritance. My father's legacy. Her face twitched. I was harsh that night. I've had time to reflect. 4 years, I interrupted. You've had 4 years to reflect. Funny how you only want to talk now that you've seen the house. She attempted a smile, but it died quickly. Vanessa called me. She was distraught. She didn't realize you'd been so successful. Neither did I. I want you to know that I'm proud. I actually laughed then, a short, bitter sound. Proud? You're proud now? Where was that pride when Dad was teaching me to code in his office? Where was it when I got into Stanford? When I published my first paper? You called my work a hobby. You told your friends I was wasting my potential. I was wrong, she said quickly, desperately. I see that now. I was trying to shape you into someone the world would respect, but I failed to see you already were. I'm sorry, Jordan. Truly. I want us to be a family again. I met her eyes, and saw what my father must have seen decades ago. A woman who measured love in social currency, who couldn't separate achievement from appearance. We were never a family, I said quietly. You had Vanessa. I had Dad. And then I had no one. Her composure finally cracked. For the first time in my life, I saw my mother look small. Diminished. You've changed, she whispered. I smiled faintly. No. I just stopped needing your permission to exist. We stood in silence for a long moment, her on the porch, me in the doorway of the home I'd built without her help, without her approval, without her at all. She glanced around one more time, searching for something to criticize, some way to regain the upper hand. But there was nothing. Every detail of this house screamed success on my own terms. Finally, she turned toward the gate. If you ever want to reconnect, she started. I'll let you know, I finished, and closed the door gently but firmly. The electronic lock engaged with a soft click that echoed through the marble foyer. I walked back to my office, where afternoon light poured across my desk, illuminating the framed photo I kept there. My father and me at a robotics competition, both laughing, both covered in solder burns and coffee stains. His handwriting was still visible on the back. Build something real. I did, Dad, I whispered. I really did. That night, my phone lit up with a text from my college roommate, Jessica. Oh my God, your name is all over the Pacific Heights gossip groups. Your mom told everyone you were a failure, gave Vanessa the family house. Now they found out you built AdaptiveGrid. She's mortified. I didn't respond. I just sat on my rooftop terrace, watching the solar panels adjust to the fading light, and felt nothing but peace. The fallout was faster and more vicious than I expected. Within 2 weeks, the story had spread through every social circle my mother cared about. Someone leaked details about the engagement dinner, complete with my mother's exact words. "You're a disgrace. Get out." The San Francisco Chronicle's gossip column picked it up. Tech genius Jordan Chen was called a disgrace by socialite mother, then built a $50 million company. Jessica sent me screenshots of the online comments. Catherine Chen threw out her daughter and gave away the family home. Now the disgrace is a millionaire. Karma is real. Jordan Chen's mother is learning the hard way that humiliation has consequences. Imagine being so blind you can't see genius in your own daughter. I didn't read most of them. I was too busy working. AdaptiveGrid was expanding into Europe, and I had a company to run. But the professional consequences for my family were real. My mother's name, once spoken with reverence at charity galas, became whispered gossip. The same women who'd clinked champagne glasses with her at fundraisers now avoided her at the country club. An event planner friend told Jessica that my mother had been quietly removed from 3 nonprofit boards. They said her judgment was questionable, the friend reported. Bad optics to have someone who publicly humiliated her own daughter. Vanessa's life was unraveling too. 2 months after she saw my house, her fiancé called off the engagement. Turned out he'd been more interested in her family connections than her personality, and those connections were now toxic. She'd invested heavily in a luxury condo development that went bankrupt, and the legal fees wiped out most of her savings. 6 months after the engagement dinner debacle, I received a handwritten letter. No return address, but I recognized my mother's distinctive calligraphy immediately. "Jordan," it began. "I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. I spent your entire life trying to mold you into something I could understand, something I could showcase. I was so obsessed with appearances that I couldn't see the substance beneath. You were building the future while I was managing the past. Your father would be ashamed of me. He always believed in you. I should have too. I've lost everything that mattered: my reputation, my daughter, my self-respect. You built everything by being authentic. I'm sorry I couldn't see it until it was too late. Catherine." The paper trembled slightly in my hands. Part of me, the child who'd craved her approval for decades, wanted to feel something. Satisfaction, vindication, even pity. Instead, I felt empty. Not sad. Just done. I walked to the kitchen, turned on the gas stove, and held the letter over the flame. The edges curled and blackened, the careful handwriting dissolving into ash. "Apology noted," I whispered to the smoke. "Not accepted. Just noted." Outside, the house's automated systems adjusted the blinds as the afternoon sun shifted. Light flooded back into the kitchen, warm and forgiving. For the first time in years, I felt completely free, not from my family, but from needing them. The next phase of my life happened faster than I could process. AdaptiveGrid's valuation hit $200 million after a major acquisition offer from a European energy consortium. I turned it down. This wasn't about the exit. It was about the mission. We expanded to commercial aviation, helping airports reduce their energy consumption by 60%. We partnered with the Department of Defense to optimize energy use in military bases. By year 5, we had 300 employees, offices in 6 countries, and a waiting list of clients that stretched into 2028. Forbes named me one of the 30 under 35 to watch. Fast Company called AdaptiveGrid the infrastructure company that will define the next century. I gave a TED Talk about sustainable AI that got 12 million views. And through all of it, I never mentioned my family. Never told the story of being called a disgrace and exiled from my childhood home. The press wanted the narrative from homeless to tech mogul, but I refused. This wasn't about revenge. It was about building something that mattered. Still, the universe has a way of delivering poetic justice. 18 months after my mother's letter, I was having lunch at a restaurant in Menlo Park when I saw them. My mother and Vanessa, sitting at a corner table, menus open, clearly uncomfortable. They hadn't seen me yet. I watched my mother's hands tremble as she looked at the prices. Watched Vanessa's jaw tighten when the waiter mentioned the daily special. They ordered salads and water. No wine. No appetizers. The Catherine Chen I'd known would never have been so restrained. When they stood to leave, my mother's eyes found mine across the restaurant. For a moment, we just stared at each other. I could have looked away. Could have pretended I hadn't seen her. Instead, I nodded slightly, not friendly, not hostile, just acknowledging her existence the way you might acknowledge a stranger. She froze, clearly debating whether to approach. Vanessa grabbed her arm and whispered something urgent. They left quickly, my mother's designer coat catching on a chair as they rushed toward the exit. I returned to my laptop, reviewing code for our next deployment. 5 minutes later, the waiter approached with a confused expression. "Excuse me, Miss Chen?" The two women who just left. They tried to pay for their meal, but their credit card was declined. They left without settling the bill. "Do you know them?" I looked up slowly. "I used to," I said. "I'll take care of it." I paid their $47 tab and left a generous tip. Not because I forgave them. Not because I wanted reconciliation. But because I could afford to, and they couldn't. That was closure enough. That evening, I received an email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line read, "From V." I almost deleted it, but curiosity made me open it. "Jordan, I saw you at lunch today. Thank you for covering our bill. I know you didn't have to. I've been trying to write this for months, but pride kept stopping me. I was wrong. About everything. I mocked your coding, your hobby, your dreams. I thought success meant country clubs and designer clothes and a rich husband. I thought you were wasting your life. I was so wrong. I lost my fiancé because I had nothing real to offer. I lost my money because I invested in flash instead of substance. I lost our mother's respect because she finally saw me clearly. Meanwhile, you built an empire. You changed industries. You proved everyone wrong, especially me. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know. I'm sorry. And I'm proud of you, even if I have no right to be. Vanessa." I read the email 3 times, searching for manipulation, for hidden agenda, for some angle. But all I found was raw honesty and regret. I sat with it for an hour, watching the sun set through my office windows, the sky turning from gold to orange to deep purple. Finally, I hit reply. "Vanessa, thank you for your honesty. It doesn't erase the past, but it acknowledges it. That's something. I'm not ready for a relationship. Maybe I never will be. But I accept your apology. What you do with that acceptance is up to you. Build something real." That's what Dad would say. Jordan. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. 2 years passed. AdaptiveGrid went public. The IPO valued the company at $1.2 billion. Overnight, my net worth jumped to $340 million. I used the first $50 million to establish the Richard Chen Foundation for Sustainable AI, offering scholarships to first-generation college students studying climate tech. On the foundation's website, I posted a photo of my father and me at that 8th grade science fair, along with his favorite quote. "Build something real." The press coverage was enormous. NPR did a feature. The New York Times ran a profile. And buried in paragraph 17 of that Times article was a single line. Chen, who was estranged from her family after being publicly humiliated at a family dinner, credits her late father as her primary inspiration. That line changed everything. Within 24 hours, it had been screenshotted, shared, dissected across social media. People found old photos of my mother at charity events, connected dots, identified Vanessa. The full story came out not from me, but from former guests at that engagement dinner who'd stayed silent for years. "I was there," one woman posted on Twitter. Jordan's mother called her a disgrace in front of 80 people and gave the family home to her sister. It was cruel and unforgivable. The backlash was swift and merciless. My mother's remaining social connections evaporated. Aunt Vivian's tech money husband quietly filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. The family reputation my mother had spent decades building collapsed in a matter of weeks. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just kept working. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a certain satisfaction knowing that the truth was finally public. 3 months after the IPO, I received a package via courier. Inside was a key on a simple ring, and a note in my mother's handwriting. Jordan, this is the key to the Pacific Heights house. The house your father bought. The house I gave to Vanessa. The house that should have been yours. Vanessa and I can no longer afford to maintain it. The property taxes alone are crushing. We're selling it. But before we do, I wanted you to have the chance to buy it, if you want it. Not because I think money will fix what I broke. But because it was your father's, and it should have been your inheritance. The asking price is $4.2 million. I know that's more than I gave Vanessa, but the market has changed. If you want it, it's yours. If not, I understand. Catherine. I held the key in my palm, feeling its weight. The house where my father had taught me everything. The house where I'd learned to code. The house I'd been exiled from. The house that represented everything my mother valued and everything she'd failed to understand about me. I could buy it easily. I could turn it into AdaptiveGrid's San Francisco headquarters. I could live there and every day walk past the dining room where I'd been humiliated. Or I could let it go. Let someone else fill those rooms with new memories. Let the past stay buried. I called Phoenix. What would you do? I asked. She didn't hesitate. What does your gut tell you? That I don't need it, I said slowly. I already have everything that house represented. I have Dad's legacy. I have the company he inspired. I have the life he wanted me to build. Then you have your answer. I wrote back to my mother. Catherine. Thank you for the offer, but I'm not interested in buying the house. Sell it to someone who will make it a home, not a monument. I don't need that building to remember my father. I carry him with me in the work I do every day. The house is just brick and wood. What mattered was what he taught me inside it, and no one can sell that. Jordan, I mailed the key back with the letter. 2 weeks later, the house sold to a young family with 3 kids. I saw photos of them moving in, laughing, carrying boxes through the front door. It felt right. That house deserved life again, not ghosts. 5 years after the engagement dinner that changed everything, I stood on stage at the Global Climate Summit in Copenhagen, accepting an award for AdaptiveGrid's contributions to carbon reduction. The company had helped eliminate 50 million tons of CO2 emissions. We'd created 2,000 jobs. We'd proven that doing good and doing well weren't mutually exclusive. As I held the glass award, a sculpture of the earth suspended in crystal, I thought about my mother's toast that night. To the daughter who actually made something of her life. She'd been talking about Vanessa, but standing on that stage, representing a company that was literally helping save the planet, I realized she'd been right. Just not about which daughter. In the audience, I saw Phoenix cheering. Dr. Martinez wiping tears. Marcus Liu giving me a thumbs up. My real family. The people who believed in me when I had nothing. The people who saw my potential when all my blood relatives saw was disappointment. That night, I posted a photo on social media for the first time in years. Just me, holding the award, with a simple caption, "For Dad." I built something real. The post got 400,000 likes. But only one comment mattered. It was from Vanessa. He would be so proud. I'm sorry it took me so long to say it, but I am too. I didn't reply. But I didn't delete it either. Some bridges don't need to be rebuilt. They just need to be acknowledged as burned, then left behind. Today, I'm 33 years old. AdaptiveGrid is valued at $3.8 billion and operates in 47 countries. I split my time between Palo Alto, where the headquarters sits on 5 acres of net zero campus, and a sustainable ranch in Montana where I disconnect completely. I never reconciled with my mother. She moved to Arizona, lives modestly, And we exchange Christmas cards, nothing more. Vanessa and I text occasionally. Brief, polite updates. She's working as a project manager at a nonprofit now, making $60,000 a year. She seems happier than she ever was chasing luxury. I funded her position anonymously through the Richard Chen Foundation. She doesn't know. She doesn't need to. The greatest revenge, I learned, isn't destruction. It's building something so undeniable, so meaningful, so real, that the people who doubted you have no choice but to see their mistake. I didn't burn my family's house down. I built my own, then built a company, then built a legacy. And every solar panel we install, every building we optimize, every ton of carbon we eliminate is proof that the disgrace they threw away became the solution the world needed. My father used to say, build something real. I built an empire. But more importantly, I built myself. And that's something no one can ever take away. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or called a failure by the people who should have loved you most, remember this: their words don't define your worth. Your work does. Now go build something that proves them all wrong. I did. And I've never looked back.